Welcome to Ethical Point. So glad you're joining us for this explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating, kind of controversial intersection, where cutting-edge tech meets public service. If you are a UPSC aspirant gearing up for General Studies Paper 4, you are in the exact right place. We are going to completely unpack how artificial intelligence is, quite literally, reshaping the very fabric of administrative governance. Okay, so here's our game plan for today. We'll start with the core UPSC AI dilemma. Check out the allure of efficiency, and then pivot right into algorithmic bias and friction. After that, we'll introduce human-in-the-loop governance, look at benchmarking dependability, and finally, wrap the whole thing up with a UPSC Mains Masterclass.
Section 1. The UPSC AI Dilemma. Let's just jump right into the core tension, the exact dilemma that's keeping public policy advisors and, honestly, exam setters up at night.
So check out this actual prompt from the 2024 UPSC GS paper. The application of artificial intelligence as a dependable source of input for administrative rational decision-making is a debatable issue. Critically examine the statement from the ethical point of view. I mean, they hit the nail right on the head with this one. It's essentially forcing us to stop and ask, can we actually trust a non-human, totally emotionless machine to make complex, sensitive, administrative decisions?
Section 2. The allure of efficiency. To really unpack that question, we kind of have to understand why governments are sprinting to adopt AI in the first place. Let me put on my optimistic policy advisor hat for a second and talk about the sheer, undeniable allure of efficiency. Think about the perfect world scenario. The ethical argument for AI is, frankly, incredibly strong when we're talking about pure efficiency. We're talking about processing massive data sets at lightning speed. It offers total consistency, right? Machines don't need coffee breaks, they don't get tired, they don't come into the office in a bad mood, and they absolutely don't bring personal prejudices into their calculations. Think about real-world tools we're already seeing, like the Income Tax Department's Saathi chatbot, or the language translation tool BHASHINI. They ensure procedural fairness by just cutting out the human noise. They can even predict where welfare delivery is needed most. That makes them incredibly powerful tools for distributive justice.
And that right there brilliantly illustrates a core ethical concept you absolutely need to know: utilitarianism. Just in layman's terms, utilitarianism is all about maximizing the happiness pie for the greatest number of people. So when AI steps in and streamlines welfare delivery, meaning millions of people get their subsidies faster, cutting through all that bureaucratic red tape, it is actively promoting a utilitarian ideal. It is literally doing the most good for the most people in the shortest possible time.
Section 3. Algorithmic bias and friction. Okay, actually, let me take off that optimist hat and play the skeptic for a minute. Because while utilitarianism sounds amazing on paper, the administrative reality, it's a lot darker. Because before we even start critiquing the algorithm itself, we have to look at the data feeding it. And that brings us straight to the digital divide. Put simply, the digital divide is an invisible wall. On one side, you have folks with smartphones, high-speed internet, a massive digital footprint. On the other side are marginalized demographics, often the rural poor or the elderly, who just don't have access to modern tech. And because they aren't online, well, they are practically invisible in the digital datasets that AI learns from. So, because these marginalized groups are completely underrepresented in the data, the AI develops what we call algorithmic bias. It basically institutionalizes historical inequalities. Just imagine a welfare scheme AI that accidentally excludes an entire village simply because nobody in that village has a digital footprint. I mean, that is a devastating exclusion error. On top of that, AI focuses purely on strict equality. But public administration, that often requires equity, which means treating unequals unequally based on human compassion. AI completely lacks that empathy. And honestly, worse yet, its absolute hunger for data opens up some massive privacy and surveillance risks. And, that lack of empathy is severely compounded by the black box problem. Let me break this down with a quick analogy. Imagine you apply for a critical government business loan. The AI looks at your application, that's the input. It denies the loan, that's the output. But when you ask why, the system literally can't tell you. The internal logic is completely hidden. That is the black box. In public administration, denying a citizen a vital service with zero explanation completely violates the fundamental right to procedural fairness. Which leads us to a pretty chilling question. If an AI makes an erroneous decision that ruins a citizen's life, who exactly is accountable? Is it the software developer, the district administrator, the central government? You can't put a line of code in jail. You can't punish an algorithm. Ethical governance relies heavily, absolutely crucially, on having an identifiable human being who can be held accountable for their actions. Section 4.
human-in-the-loop governance. So, we've got the immense utilitarian efficiency of AI on one hand, and this terrifying lack of accountability on the other. How do we synthesize this? We need a balanced framework for safe implementation.
The entire foundation of this solution rests on human agency. In simple terms, human agency is our moral steering wheel. It is our unique ability to look at a situation, apply human values, and make an independent choice. Delegating those moral decisions to a non-moral entity, like an AI, is incredibly dangerous, simply because machines do not have this steering wheel.
So, the real game changer here is implementing a human-in-the-loop, or HITL system. Think of it exactly like using a GPS in your car. Step 1. The AI augments. It acts as an advisor and suggests the route. Step 2. It integrates the ethics of care by generating different options. Step 3. The human decides. Just like you, the driver, decide if it's actually safe to turn where the GPS says to, the civil servant makes the final call. And finally, Step 4. Continuous ethical auditing. We have to constantly run bias stress tests on these systems to make sure they aren't silently discriminating in the background.
Section 5. Benchmarking dependability. So how do we actually measure, practically speaking, if an AI is safe to use in a specific government department?
Well, civil agencies use specific benchmarks, and these are an absolute goldmine for your understanding. Take reversibility, for example. If an AI makes a mistake on a routine tax calculation, hey, it's reversible, right? You just recalculate it. But what if an AI is used in the justice system, say to recommend denying someone bail? That real-world harm is irreversible. You cannot give someone back the days they spent unjustly sitting in a jail cell. Therefore, an AI's dependability entirely depends on the severity and the reversibility of the risks involved.
Section 6, UPSC Mains Masterclass. All right, we have covered the philosophy, the tech, the policy. Now, let's get highly practical and translate this entire debate into a structured, high-scoring exam response.
If you are hit with a 10 marker on this topic, here is your perfect anatomical structure. Step 1. The intro. Define AI in governance and immediately drop real examples like BHASHINI or Saathi. Step 2. The pro-con debate. Contrast that utilitarian efficiency against algorithmic bias and the digital divide. Step 3. The framework. Don't just list the problems, propose the human-in-the-loop system as your concrete solution. And Step 4, the conclusion. Synthesize the technology with constitutional values, emphasizing that empathy simply cannot be coded.
And looking ahead to what UPSC is likely to ask next year, I highly predict you're going to see a case study that pits AI data against a human administrator's empathetic intuition. For instance, imagine an AI flags a poor farmer as ineligible for drought relief based on some mismatched data, but your intuition as the district magistrate tells you he is genuinely suffering. You will need to strongly argue why human empathy and ground truthing must override the machine. Also, keep an eye out for questions explicitly asking about ethical stress tests and regulatory frameworks.
To absolutely nail your conclusion, you need the right vocabulary. Here is one final, completely crucial definition: normative. While science focuses on what is, normative ethics focuses on what ought to be. It is all about standards, values, and moral judgments. You see, an AI can calculate what is happening with the data, but it takes a human being to decide what ought to be done about it.
Which brings us to our final takeaway, a quote you should absolutely memorize for your exams. Administrative decision-making is not just a rational choice, it is a normative one. Blind reliance on AI seriously risks stripping the humanity right out of governance. AI is a fantastic decision support tool, no doubt, but the ultimate responsibility, compassion, and moral judgment must always remain in human hands. So I leave you with this: if an algorithm can flawlessly calculate the law, but only a human can administer justice, where will you draw the line in your district?